Hello and welcome to another episode of People of Media. And today I get the incredible honor of interviewing Tim Huelskamp, who is the CEO of 1440 and the co-founder of Fitstar. Amazing brother. We've already had some pretty sparkling conversation prior to this back in November. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Thanks so much. Super honored to be here and can't wait to chat more.
It's so good to see. It's good to finally see your face. The last time we talked, you weren't able to be on screen, so this is our first time seeing each other. So my first question for you is interesting fact. Interesting fact about you.
Interesting fact. In eighth grade, I got to lay the wreath on the tomb of the unknown soldier because I had the highest Constitution score test, and we got selected of all like a couple hundred schools in eighth grade, and that was like a pretty big deal to me. I remember my dad always talking about like one day people are going to care about this, so I'm hoping that's the day today.
Oh man. So it was so it was a competition type thing where
Yeah,
you
basically like there was a raffle with all the different schools, and then whoever had the highest score on the Constitution test like got to do. It's a very like it's great like that daily ceremony where like the
yeah,
soldiers are
yeah.
walking down, and we got to go up and actually lay the wreath on the tomb of the unknown soldier.
Oh my goodness, man. Now, well, see, now that's a big enough thing where I got to ask, like, what did that open up for you, right? Because there's obviously a reason that emotion that's in your emotional memory. So what would you say that opened up for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know. I think maybe just realizing how small you are in like the greater environment, right? I think it looks like very humbling and made me realize like, I mean, I was in eighth grade, but wow, like, I live in Chicago.
Yeah,
Grew up in Chicago. I think that was my first time in Washington, D.C., and just seeing like the aura of it and the power of it and all the people coming together and all the history and like how our country's been built and the glory and the sins we've made as a country. I think just like
yeah.
realizing that you're just like one little cog in that larger machine, I think that might have been my takeaway there.
Man, that almost sounds like a tie to being intellectually curious.
Yeah,
You know, the world is so big and beautiful, and we have moments where we get to see that's bigger than we thought, right?
exactly.
Um, so I'm gonna skip right. Actually, right before we got on camera, you were talking about how you love to collaborate with your with friends or business models, and so this kind of speaks a little bit to your superpower. I want to go straight to that, man. I think we could end up talking about that for a little bit. So yeah, tell me about that tendency or that passion you have.
Yeah, I love exploring companies, new business models, learning about what other companies are doing in other industries, seeking like what we call like white space, like where companies aren't in those industries. So yeah, I think like early on I was as a young guy I was kind of like messing around with business ideas. So like I had a soda, or I guess we call it pop here in the Midwest, company at the bottom of my parents' driveway. Like when I was like, I think in fifth grade or 5 years old, like selling like we bought it at Walmart and we'd sell it for a quarter and like made some
Yeah,
money that way. And then, I did like a CD burning business in high school, which may have been illegal, but it's statute of limitations passed there. So I think I've just always been like entrepreneurial and really love like trying to find a business model that works. Because I think what like really interests me about it is at the end of the day, it's like it's like it's what humans find fascinating is like really what companies are about. Richard Branson always talks about this, like basically like if you break down what companies are supposed to be, like they're supposed to make people's lives better. So I really enjoy learning about like, even if it's in an industry I don't really understand or I'm not in the target demo of, what those folks are doing in that industry, how they're learning it, how they're building businesses, like where they're seeing scale, where they're seeing business profitability. So I just love that and I love exploring it. And I can get pretty annoying, even like with a friend talking about like, they have a challenge at work and it's like, why don't you start a company? Like, is it that big of a, like, do thousands of people have that problem? Do millions of people have that problem? Like, is it repeatable? And like trying to think through that. So yeah, I just love that whole like trying to solve, like, I don't know, it's like you're trying to help humans at scale, which like again, that's what businesses are supposed to be. Not all businesses like live up to that, but yeah, I really get really passionate about thinking about it and yeah, exploring the different models. Like for the last, I don't know, 20 years, I've looked every morning at who are the companies raising venture capital. And I think
yeah,
that's been really cool because what's been fascinating is you see these businesses 15 years ago that started with like a seed round from like Founders Fund or Andreessen Horowitz or whoever, and then like now those companies are like $100 billion publicly traded companies, but it's
Yeah.
been fascinating to watch them like create a new lane almost. Like I think you saw this a lot, like
Yep.
where you had like Airbnb invented, which was arguably the first sharing economy company, and then you saw like the dog service with Wag, and then you saw like
Yep.
the boats and like hubs or parking, and you saw it like go to all the different verticals. So I just love like learning about those things and seeing how other people are coming up with new business models, and then trying to figure out like how it all comes together.
Yeah. So as I'm watching you, I'm watching you as you light up when you talk about this,
Yeah,
right? Like it lights you up. And I almost see like there's like a child, like the delight of a child, right? In the awe of a child in like playing with Legos, right? Like that's what I see. You know what I mean? Like like playing with Legos or building with constructs or something like that. Like you feel like that about business models. They're fun for you.
totally. Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately or fortunately, yeah, totally true. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love trying to learn how they work, how like, where the profit margins are, how to
Yeah.
scale them. But like most importantly, it's like, yeah, what's like the customer pain point and like how it can be addressed at scale. Like I think
Yeah.
that's just really fascinating.
Are you a fan of I think it's Alex Hormozy? Um,
Yeah, I gotta
no.
gotta get up on my reading.
Okay, your energy reminds me of him a little bit. Like I'll have to shoot you a link or two on him. I thought I was gonna. Sometimes I put my finger on it and I'm like, and they're like, yeah, that's one of the people. But I guess that's not an influence for you. Um,
Nice.
can you talk about a time when you got to? Because I also heard the word cheerleader a little bit in what you were saying. Like you're just like start a business, start it. Like you can do it, right? You can do it. Start a business. I see this idea. You see this idea. You've got a passion. Start a business. Have you been able to help people in your community and in your circle actually like take that? Because for most of us, it's scary. The idea of starting a business, it's not necessarily even that it's hard. It's that it's scary. If you haven't done it before, I'll raise my hand on that. I haven't. I'm in the middle of starting a business, and it's scary, and it's kind of
Yep.
weird and difficult. I can see why people don't do it. Right? Are there people in that you've helped do that, and how?
Yeah, yeah. So I couldn't agree more. It's very scary, and it's like I think one of the things I've learned, and me and my co-founder Drew learned this, and I heard this early on from a lot of folks when we were starting like 1440, but it takes like 2 or 3 times as long as you think it will as well.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've learned is like if you don't love what you do, like if you're what you're starting, like it's probably not going to end well because you just have to have so much grit and perseverance to get through it that you like it's so hard to your point that you have to really love what you're doing and be passionate about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think locally I try to I think over the years there are a couple ways to answer that question. Like I used to help I try like using when I'm on these podcasts, I usually say at the end, I can do it now. It's like, I'm at Tim at join1440.com. And when
Yeah.
I started, people were very kind to me and like paying it forward and
Yeah.
helping me get the thing off the ground. And if I can ever be helpful to anyone, I want to return that favor. So if
Yeah.
anyone hears this and I can be helpful in your entrepreneurial journey, whether that's like advice for getting started, or even just like I have a couple people that like I talk to them every once in a while because they're solo
Yeah.
founders, and it sucks. It's lonely. You have no one to
Yeah.
like commiserate with. You're like you have like the highest highs and the lowest lows on the same days, and there's no one to like share that with. It can be very very lonely. So I say like even if it's just kind of chatting with someone every once in a while to like give them um that little like shot in the arm, so to speak.
Yeah.
Also, I think to keep building on this, a lot of people like will have like product market fit or like early
Yeah.
signs of product market fit. And
Yeah.
I've seen them almost like be discouraged and kind of give up. And I don't think they realize that they have something that's like the future of like what could be a big business. So I always try to encourage them like this is very rare that you have these early signs of product market fit this early. I
Yes.
actually read was it Henry Ford? I think Thomas Edison. If you look in Henry Ford's autobiography, it was like Thomas Edison told him something like, "This car's like this concept's amazing. You should keep going." And
Yeah.
he said that like one of the like he was gonna quit, but
Yes.
Thomas Edison told him that, so
Yes.
he like kept going and like transformed literally like whole industries and like the whole world essentially. So
Yes.
I'm not well, hopefully I'm advising a Henry Ford right now, but
Yeah.
yeah, you just I think it's like really important to like help people realize this is so hard company building, and like if you like you need like the emotional support, and then also like tell people when you see like the progress and success, let them know that like you were there once and you saw that, and like this is really important. So I think that like on the local level, and then like more on a large scale, yeah, we also I launched I was a co-founder of an organization here in Chicago called Fifth Star Funds.
Yep.
And basically, so for there's this thing called the friends and family round. Basically, like if you're raising a startup, or sorry, if you're starting a company,
Yep.
the first money into the company is usually from your friends and family. So before angel investors, before seed investors, before Series A, there's that little bit of money you need to get the business off the ground, maybe to like get the website going, some legal expenses, set up Facebook ads, like very basic company building stuff. On average, folks that raise the friends and family round raise about $23,000. And what we found here in Chicago is that there's a ton of underrepresented founders that like we would meet like at 1871 is the local like startup incubator, the city's startup incubator, and they like have this awesome pain point that they've encountered. They've done all the work around like really understanding the customer. Like they're like ready to go, and they
Yeah.
just need that little bit of money to get it off the ground. But they might like come from a family that doesn't have access. Like not everyone can like go to their uncle and get 10 grand or 20 grand. So yeah, a couple years ago, me and some tech co-founders here in Chicago started Fifth Star, and what we do is we look for underrepresented founders that are need that friends and family capital, but through no fault of their own can't raise it, and we
Yep.
provide it to them. So been doing
Man.
that for a couple of years now, which has been a really interesting experience also. And we're trying to actually scale that across the United States, but right now we're just in Chicago.
So there's a theme here, right? Like you really are serious about paying it forward. You're serious about generosity and about helping people. Um, how did you come by that? Is that have you just always been like I just want to help people, right? I don't care. I just want to help, or has the experiences that you've gone through where you needed help? I mean, I'm sure that kind of informed it a little bit, but can you talk about because it's deep with you? I can tell every second conversation we talked a lot about this stuff. So
Thanks, man.
where does that come from?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's a combination of everything you just said. I think like generally it's like good for the world to help others. I think like I saw firsthand, I had people go way out of their way, like not knowing it maybe at the time
Yep.
when I was in high school or
Yep.
college or my first job or my second job, like people mentor me and just like teach me a bunch of stuff that maybe like I was in a lot of rooms I probably shouldn't have been in. And it's like because people I greatly admire was like saw something in me, like we're gonna pull him in so he can learn. So I try to do the same thing. And then also I think it's just like yeah, being a good human, right? I think like you want
Yeah.
to make a small dent in the universe, like where however however you can, or
Yeah.
help others. Like I
Yep.
think like
Yep.
there's a lot of hatred and vitriol in the world, especially right now, and it's just like how do we
Yep.
just help each other, like be a little bit better every day. So I think it's a combination of all those things.
Man, I resonate with that. Like, so we're getting actually way deeper than the scope of this conversation at this point, which I love. I'm good with it. Um, when I was a kid, um, I just remember like my early years and up through high school and up into college were just rough, man. They were just rough. Like I grew up with like this sense like I'm really nobody and I'm never gonna be anybody. Like I really felt that. I ran it by my brother the other day. I was like, bro, I feel like I felt like this when I was a kid. I was like, did we really feel like this? And my brother was like, yeah, we thought we were nothing. He's a real estate agent now and doing really well. Um, and now later in life, through a process of time, in some moments like what you're talking about, there were moments when somebody reached a hand to me, right, and pulled me places that I didn't deserve to be, or didn't think I deserved to be, or didn't
Hmm.
belong, so to speak, rooms I didn't
Hmm.
belong in. Um, and eventually I end up, a different life than I thought I was going to have growing up.
Hmm.
Um, and so I wrote a book called The Superpower Quest, which is kind of it really documents my journey from I'm nobody and I'm never going to be anybody to wow, I've got some really cool gifts and some really cool design things going on, and why don't I push into those and why don't I help other people push into those? Um, but I never would have got there without the mentors, right?
Hmm.
Like and so what I hear for you say really is the cry of my heart, which is for more people to be what I call the benevolent upperclassmen, right?
Hmm.
When I'm a freshman in high school and if a senior comes and puts his arm around me and says, I see something in you. I'm going to show you how this works here. I'm going to guide you. I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to teach you. You're safe here. I didn't have that. That would have meant the more than the world to me to have that. You know what I'm saying? And so like I see you seeking to be that for other people.
Yeah. First of all, I'd love to read your book. I gotta get that ASAP.
Yeah. Oh,
Check
thank you.
that
Thank
out.
you.
But yeah, no, exactly. I think that's right. And folks have helped you. How do you pay it forward? How do you help others? I think also, not that this is why everyone does it, but also like, when you meet someone and like build a relationship with them and help them, you also learn a ton from them as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They bring new
Yeah.
perspective to you and like they help you see things a different way. You learn a new industry, you're right. So just like, yeah, knowledge sharing is like, the most important thing, arguably. Maybe love is more, but like it's one of the
Yeah.
most important things in the
Yeah.
world, right? Is like
Yeah.
how do we share, how do we acquire knowledge and share it with each other?
And I would even say that knowledge sharing is a function of love, right? Like I think you could put it that way, right? Because
Yep.
Fred Rogers used to say, Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
he used to say, like, stop and close your eyes and think of the people who loved you into being.
Mm.
Loved you into being, bro. Like,
Wow. Yeah.
and to some degree, right? If I'm loving you into being, part of that is giving you knowledge and tools so that you can be all that you're supposed to be,
Yep. Love it.
bro.
Yeah, but that's gonna be in my head now for quite a while.
Dude, yeah, if you read like I didn't know like when I was a kid, I just didn't like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I wanted to watch Thundercats. I wasn't trying to, you know, you know what I'm saying? Like I was just like, don't make me watch this. But then going back and like reading about his life and reading his books, like that man really understood some things about the human condition and how to love. Like he really did.
Yeah,
So like my
well
hero.
ahead of his time, sounds like, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Um, so can you tell us a little bit about 1440? And then I have, and then we're going to talk a little bit about that journey, the journey of that company to where it is today. So if you can just kind of frame us there a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, great segue. I mean, like, 1440 is a knowledge company at the end of the day, right? So, like, we started this thing about 7 years ago. Me and my co-founder, Drew, super smart guy, PhD scientist, worked on Capitol Hill, works with like senators and all that stuff. Super, like, brain exploding out of his head, smart type of guy. And yeah, so similar, like we like we're really intellectually curious and we love learning. And we felt like to do that, it was pretty hard in a couple of key ways. So like the first way was like, so if you're looking for daily news, which is our current product, and we're expanding into like another thing I'd love to tell you more about, but
Hmm.
um, for folks to know what's going on in the world, like, news and media by design is very nichey or verticalized. So there's like sports and technology and culture and local and all these things. And we felt like, okay, so if you're an intellectually curious person who likes learning all those things, like who kind of is like the inch deep, mile wide provider that gives you a little bit of everything, so you know what's going on. Like not only like what's going on in the Middle East and like the latest company IPOing and what CRISPR is, but also fun stuff like fall foliage schedules and Michelin stars and when
Hmm.
Burning Man is, even if you've never been to Burning Man, right? People like want to know these things. So we felt like no one kind of pulled that together in one place for us. And the second one was just all these things that got in the way of the knowledge. So like misinformation, bias, opinions, watching the news at night, people yelling at each other for an hour and getting your blood boiling, like going on social media trying to find something, and there's just like all this overload. And like the average person, we think, is like doesn't want that. They just want like the knowledge in their brain as efficiently as possible. So we
Yeah.
started 1440. 1440 is the year the printing press was invented, when knowledge was
Yeah.
exploded to the
Yeah.
masses. That's where our name comes from. And
Yeah.
basically, we just tried to help other people learn. So we started a newsletter. It's very simple to begin with. The business model is still pretty simple, but
Yeah.
it's sophisticated on the back end. But like the operations are pretty simple. But it's basically like we go out and we curate all the best knowledge of the day, knowledge and news of the day. We put it in a daily email and we ship it out to folks at 6 a.m. in the morning. And we started with like 78 friends and family. We did the whole minimum viable product process, like built it like a good startup should, and listened to feedback and everything. And yeah, people started really liking our product, and we kind of expanded and expedited the whole process. And fast forward a couple years later now, so we have like over 4 million readers. We have like the highest open rate in the space. That's kind of the quality metric. It's over 60%. About a third of our readers have a graduate degree. So there's a lot of like doctor, banker, lawyer, consultants, right? Like I'm a doctor with 3 kids. I love learning. I don't have time to like sift through all these different places. Just help me learn efficiently.
Yeah.
Um, it's 50-50 male, female, and it's spread almost perfectly across the country. It's also interestingly very politically divided. So like Republican, Democrat,
Yeah.
independent as well,
Yeah.
which is interesting. So yeah, and then like that's what we tried to do when we launched, and then when we hit 10,000 people, we were like mind boggled that 10,000 people read our product, and now we're
Yeah.
up to over 4 million.
Yeah.
Actually, we've been chasing the cities in America, and the only one Chicago's gone, LA's gone, now, New York's in sight. So
Yeah.
we got a ways to go to get there. But yeah, it's just wild to think that, 4 million people are learning from us every day. And we're really proud of is like, they love our product for the same reason that we built it, which is like, they tell us things like, thank you. I can just finally like be in this place where I learn a bunch of interesting factual things, and I don't have to worry about like, if someone trying to get me to think a certain way or vote a certain way. I just get to like learn in this pure learning environment. And yeah, we think that's really important and really special.
I've got so many questions, man. Let me easy one first. You're at four, 10 grand. You're like, wow, I can't believe it. Now you're at 4 million, right? Where do you think, what are you gunning for, man? Like,
Yeah. I don't, so, we always talk about this internally about like the total addressable market or TAM in like
yeah,
startup speak. Because we're like this, right? Like kind of
yeah,
we're like kind of for everyone.
yes,
We think we can be pretty big. So I don't know, 91% of Americans read a newsletter. 100 million plus Americans read the news on their phone. Um, I don't know, some other companies like similar to us, but with different, value propositions got up into the tens of millions of subscribers. So we think that if we keep going and like, we have to deliver to the customer every day, because if we don't do that tomorrow, we blow
right,
up. But if
right.
we treat our people well and we think long term and keep delivering to folks, like we think like there's a shot to do, 15, 20 million subscribers one day, maybe even more. But yeah, just at a time we're trying to think like how to get to the next
Yeah,
milestone. And then also just as I said earlier, like we got to remember, if you're not delivering for the customer every day,
yeah,
they have so many options and they can go so many places. So we like our whole team puts like their heart and soul into the product every day, because without that, like nothing matters. You don't get sales, you don't get growth, you don't get anything if you're not obsessively delivering to the customer every day, which we try to do here, and like remind the team all the time that that's the only reason why we win, is because we know what the customer wants and we deliver that to them every day.
yeah. Yeah, and I love them. So even the reason I reached out to you, like I've got a nose for excellence. Like I can tell, I've worked at my company. We've worked so hard to like try to figure out how to be excellently what we actually are. Because I think a lot of it is finding out what you are as a business, not like we live in a culture where it's like just unlimited growth is the goal, right? Just get as big as you can, and that's the
Yep.
goal, and that's the
Yep.
finish line. And I think no, you actually need to know who you are, like actually, and that's what leads to excellence, like those touches of excellence that you see. And so I don't read a lot of newsletters, right? But I'd say probably I've read 1440 more than any other newsletter that I've read.
Yeah. But
Um,
I would tell the team that
yeah,
it's fantastic that you see the
yeah.
value. Thank you for checking it out.
But it's the nuance. I was like, okay, because I was like, you get so jaded about news, you get jaded because it's like, I don't believe you, I don't believe you, I don't believe you,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Like I can feel the agenda and the spin, and I don't like to feel that way. And so I would always people I've frequently said, where do you get your news? Like, where do you get your news? And then finally I was like, okay, this is a download that I can actually trust. And I'm not a guy who trusts easily. I'm a pretty critical thinker, but I find it to be refreshingly light. And it does consistently what it says it's going to do.
Thank you.
Right.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's what we think like a growing number swath of Americans want. And like, it's not like we don't love it, like we love reading opinion pieces and everything.
Yep.
They shouldn't be in every piece of like data you read, right? Or like knowledge you read. So like that's our thing, is like other people do that really well. We think the white space is here, so we're going to focus on that
Yep.
maniacally and then just deliver
Yep.
that to the customer.
I just want to celebrate that, like, because you what you basically productized was your own curiosity. Like, no, people generally wouldn't say like being intellectually curious, man, that could be a product that could now become a business that could sustain paychecks for many, many people and create this beautiful team culture and then be this force in the world, right? Like it sounds preposterous to think that just being intellectually curious could become a successful product. If you just zoom out, what did it take to go from having that idea and 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 at what point along the I don't know what question I'm asking. It's become a very long and complicated question. I think I just want to point out that that's amazing. Let me point that out first,
Thank you.
right? a shower thought, and I've had this revelation with other people on the show. A shower thought can it's easy to shoot it down because it's a shower thought,
Yep.
but it could be something amazing. There's probably a lot of work and grit that's going to go into it, but it could be. It could be,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Um, I imagine some of the criticisms early on was that you weren't able to. Everybody's saying you got to niche down to a niche market to be
Correct.
successful,
Yeah.
and your ICP isn't very, it's pretty generalized. Did you get criticism on that, or did you find that to be a challenge yourself in terms of, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, we got a lot of feedback on this. So like when we were, I try to seek as much counsel as possible, like we said
yeah,
earlier. And I took this to a lot of like marketing executives and marketing experts, and they all said this won't work because exactly what you said. It's like too generalized.
yeah,
And like it's not niche. You got to niche down, and there's there's riches in the niches, I think they say. But yeah, but our whole point was like we hear you, but intellectually curious people that are busy, that don't have a lot of time, that want to learn everything is a niche. It's just a
yeah,
really freaking big niche.
yeah,
So that was our thing all along. Cause like I was looking around like my friends and family and other folks, and like, my 80-year-old grandma would have the same problem as my 22-year-old, you know, nephew. It's the
yeah,
same thing. Like we heard that, but um as we like to say, like before you test things, like there's only one way to find out. So
yeah,
we just gave it a whirl, and I think we were hopefully right about that, right so far. But yeah, I think that was we definitely got pushback on that though.
yeah. I would think just because of the kind of advice I generally hear a marketer give, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so you did get that feedback, and and you decided, well, let's experiment. That was your answer. Let's try it
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what, I think I give Drew all the credit to this. Like we had this concept. He's like, let's just write one and ship it tomorrow, and which is awesome, right? Talk about like velocity and speed. So we
out.
literally
Yes.
the first one, and we shipped it like the next day.
Yeah.
Most companies I think would like overthink it for like quarters,
Yeah.
weeks. We shipped it, and like right away, like what's so cool about the newsletter industry is like there's benchmark data, so you can see how well you're doing.
Yeah.
So when we started the thing, to your point about a test, we basically said if we don't have at least a 40% open rate and a 5% weekly organic growth rate, so like people like it and then people are forwarding it to each other, we
Yeah.
just should stop because like doesn't matter. But we had a 60 something percent open rate and like a 13% organic growth rate. So like, look, it's working. And then that gave us the confidence to just kept going and do the next one. As I think I said this, but we did it once a week to start. And then so we had like 78 friends and family on the first one. And then a week later we had 91. And then I think it was 104 after that. So you could see people just be like, oh, this is cool, and forward it to other folks. And
Yeah.
that early evidence of product market fit was there for us. And we just kind of like, let's just keep going and see what happens.
Oh, I love it, man.
Yeah.
So, so first of all, I want to note that disposition to action, right? Like you were talking about how people tend to overthink ideas and it takes court and your business partner was like, tomorrow. That
Yep.
must have freaked you. You must have been scared out of your pants, dude.
Yeah, no, I
Like,
definitely, yeah, yeah. It was so awesome in hindsight that they did that. I think one of our principles is like having a bias for action and speed. Like
yeah,
the Y Combinator guys talk about this all the time, and I think it's like it's so important, right? Just like you gotta go, you gotta learn, you gotta get your product out, especially when it's an idea on a napkin. Just getting
yeah,
it out to at least some customers and seeing what they think about it is like the most important thing early on there.
yeah. What did you start out on Substack?
No, we were on Mailchimp actually.
Oh gosh, man. All
Yeah.
right. I thought you were on. Were you not on Substack at any point?
No, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
we've
okay.
never
Yeah,
done Substack.
yeah,
So Mailchimp for the first like 50,000, and then we moved
yeah.
over to a bigger one after that.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right, man. All right. So cool. So then when did you know? Like you had a theory that you were testing. Um, but what I'm looking for is that moment where you realized something that energized the whole thing forward. So maybe the decisive moment in the growth, like or pick out one of those large milestones for me.
Yeah. I don't know. I promise I'm not just saying this to like sound like this.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Like I still don't know if we have it. Right? Like because like there's so many options you can have as a reader.
Yeah.
and like AI is coming in now, and all these different
Yeah.
things are coming. So like we like try to remember every day, like we might not have it tomorrow. So like you got to think about that. So,
Wow.
but I think like I think maybe 8 or 9 weeks in, when we had like a 65% open rate for, multiple times, and then people were forwarding it to each other. The other one I would say, my Mark Andreessen, the Andreessen Horowitz guy, always says product market fit is very tough to describe.
Yeah.
It's like falling in love. Like you know when you're in it, but you can't describe it. I think it's like
Yeah.
bungling his words. And I think like similarly, you can feel like I remember my aunt and my brother's friends from high school that I hadn't seen in 20 years would reach out to us and say, dude, that newsletter you do is wonderful. Right. And like so like early
Yeah.
evidence of that, like people telling you that they were delighted. Um,
Yes.
I think that was awesome. One of my old private equity and bosses essentially wrote me an email, kind of like the Thomas Edison one, where he was like, "This is awesome. I read it every day. Keep going." Well,
Yeah.
probably like in our third month, I think that was like a big thing for me too. So I think
Yeah.
it's like that's what's really hard. I think when you're building these companies is like very
Yeah.
beyond like you don't know. I mean, like, the difference between like a certain open rate, like this open rate and this open rate, is literally like if you're going to be successful or not. And I think it's like tough to gauge, like, are you actually delivering something? Like, do you have product market fit? So I think it's like, how do you just listen as much as possible to hear as much signal and evidence and like customer feedback as you can? But like, it's tough to describe. But like, even as we've tried to launch a few new products, and we'll like take them to the audience, and I know what they're talking about. You can like feel it, like where they
Yeah.
don't, the open
Yeah.
rate might be decent, but no one's
Yeah.
telling you like this is awesome and like changes my life and really helps me. So
Yeah.
there's this like feeling behind it. Um,
Yeah.
that's interesting too.
Dude, that's so good, man. I've got a couple newsletters of my own, and that actually really helps me to realize that what you're shooting for isn't so easy to quantify. It's a resonance, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's
Very
is
good
it
point.
resonating?
Yes, exactly.
And you want it to be resonating on such a high level that people are feeling motivated to like tell you this delights me.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Gosh, that's so good. Now you mentioned new product, and back in the conversation, you were saying you wanted to talk about a new product, right? So I'm gonna make that tie backwards because I know you did launch a business um, version or intellectually curious about business terminology and things like that. Is that what you were going to get into, or is there something else coming
Yeah,
down?
that's the first
Yeah,
entree into that thing.
yeah,
So yeah, like so okay, so we have our readers, and we still we try to talk to them all the time. If you reply to an email, it actually still comes to my inbox, so I read
yeah.
every email we receive.
What?
And what?
I seriously?
Yeah,
That's
check it out. Yeah,
insane.
send me an email tomorrow morning. I'll respond to it.
All right.
Sometimes it takes me a few hours, but I read every one. I think it's
Yeah,
really important to have the pulse of the customer. And so through that journey, like one of the things we kept hearing from our customers was, I love how you guys go out and get all this information from all these different verticals and help me learn things. However, there's all these times where I'm trying, like I hear something and I'm not familiar with it. So like as an example, like the gut microbiome, CRISPR,
yeah, yeah,
inflation, crypto, Burning Man, and like people want to learn about those things,
yeah,
but then they're frustrated when they go do that work. So like similar to kind of what I said earlier, they might go to a search engine and look for it, and there's all that like SEO clickbait,
yeah,
like not at the layer of the internet doesn't actually help you. You
yeah,
might go to a social media network and like search for a video, but like some of them are trash, excuse me, some of them aren't good, some of
yeah,
them are like misinformation. You don't know what's
yeah,
real, right? There's no
yeah,
like, so we see as like curators, we see all these incredible resources all the time, and like we just started like saving them down, and like basically this is a world-class resource that you'd want to send your friend because it's so good and it like moved you. We're
yeah,
trying to put all those in like one place, and create this kind of like, we haven't nailed it yet, but we're trying to say like if like Reddit and Wikipedia had a baby,
yeah,
so like you went out and pulled all the best resources together,
yeah,
and then we do like a summary, like a layer of curation on top of it. So we'll describe to you like what inflation is, and why the Fed targets 2 to 3%, and what it's been historically, and like what stagflation is. So like some key components
yeah,
to it. So that
yeah,
if you want to, we're basically trying to build a place like if you want to go down the rabbit hole and learn, you can do it for 2 or 3
Yep.
minutes and get an
Yep.
overview. But if you
Yep.
want to spend like 10 hours and see the best 101 video from HBS and the best CRISPR 101 from MIT, like these resources are out there and they're created by these wonderful journalists, but they're buried on like the 38th page of like search engine. So no one's finding them. So we're
Yeah.
trying to like basically be this connective tissue of like you have the intellectually curious knowledge
Yep.
seeker and like the content and like we
Yep.
put them together in an ecosystem. So the business and finance email that you mentioned is our first go around there. So we launched at the end of October. We have 150,000 subscribers on it now, just by advertising it in 1440. And it's the same thing. So every week, Phoebe, our incredible new business and finance editor, she's been with us for a couple quarters now. So she'll go out and she'll learn about, this last week was Warren Buffett. She's on venture capital, crypto, IPOs, startups, right? So like it's these things where if you're a private equity guy, which by the way is very small percentage of people, like they know how venture capital works. The
Yeah.
average person has no idea how it works and wants to
Seriously.
learn about it.
Yeah.
So like going back to like white space, like we think the big white space is actually helping people learn like the foundational evergreen layer of
Yep.
knowledge, and we don't think
Yep.
anyone's doing that well. So we're
Yep.
trying to like put it into this ecosystem, but we're still early and we're still experimenting, and like
Yeah.
every week we get punched in the face basically.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
but yeah, that's what we're going for, is how do we deliver this, like, if you want to learn about X topic,
Yeah.
we hope 1440 can be the best place on the internet to efficiently learn about it, while also like delighting you and fascinating you. To your earlier
Yes.
discussion, like knowledge should be fun too, right? So like
Yes.
if you're on our Oktoberfest page, right? Like
Yeah.
you want to learn about the history of Oktoberfest. You also want to like click a video where you can see like you're like in like walking down in Munich with people like drinking beers, like that's
Yeah.
learning too, right? So
Yeah.
how do we pull that in? Just make it this place where you can. I want to learn about this topic, and they do it better than anyone.
Dude. All right. So let me, so it's like I feel like I see the white space too, because it's all these things that as a business owner, educated person, you kind of should know, but there's no place to ask,
Yes.
right? So like you said, stagflation. I'll be vulnerable and say, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that term means. I've heard it before, never learned what it means. Am I going to just in general in conversation say, you said stagflation? Can you tell me what that means? Probably not,
Yeah.
right?
Totally. Yep.
Because, we're generally afraid to ask, or we don't want to look silly, or like
Yep.
it's all these things that are assumed knowledge that we all feel like we should know, but we probably don't
Yep.
know.
Yep.
Um, so I feel like I see in a new light what you're trying to do, right? Is when you said connective tissue, I think that's the connective tissue, right? It's like
Yep.
stuff you feel like you should know, but you don't have a place to ask it.
Exactly. Yeah. And then also just like not pushing on people, but like, people trust us to go explore and find something fascinating and then deliver it to them. And
Yeah.
they like that. So like they want to
Yep.
be like, oh, I want to learn about that today. Or I want to learn about,
Yep.
Warren Buffett today or this, right? And like, so yeah, we think that's our big opportunity
Yeah.
to go attack that.
Random question: is Masterclass an advertiser for you?
No. Do you have a connection? We'd love to.
I,
If you're listening, Masterclass, we'd love to
yeah,
help.
dude. Because I think about the heart of what you're doing and the heart of what they're doing, and they're
Yeah.
so complementary,
Yeah.
right?
It's a great push. Yeah.
Like, yeah. So yeah, if I do, I might know somebody in Masterclass. I don't know, but if I do, then I'll be sure to make that connect for you, man. Because I think, man, gosh, y'all could collaborate in so many ways. I would think
Yeah.
with
No,
such
I think
skill.
you're spot on. It's the same intellectually curious person wants to learn. They deliver knowledge. I think it's a really nice fit. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many ways we could go from here, Tim, and we don't have that much time. I've got 5 more minutes with you. Um, I think I am going to ask for this is on behalf of my viewers and my listeners, who are navigating this new world of media that's in a lot of disruption and a lot of change.
Yep.
You've been able to navigate this successfully, even though you're saying like, hey, we also need to recognize we might not have a future tomorrow. Like with the advent of all that's going on, we don't want to. Tomorrow's not assumed. So even folks who are successful are saying tomorrow's not assumed.
Yep.
What do you have for people who are kind of on the same waters, and it's just hard to navigate and to see the hope and to see the future, right? Or just need a boost of additional hope to get them through. What would you say?
Yeah. I would say like three things. One, and I know I've said this 50 times, but we think about it every day, is like just really understanding the customer and what they want.
Yeah,
Like in these changing environments, like I think that's where basically, every 10 or 15 years, there's a new technological boom and like, things are created and destroyed. But if you really know what the customer wants and you can deliver that to them, generally, like you'll be fine.
yeah,
I guess, which leads to point two,
yeah,
is if the business model works. So I think like what comes with a lot of these, especially in the media world, is you know times have changed, and I think you real like some folks I've met and try to give counsel to is like there might be new ways of doing things, and you got to make sure the math works and you can
yeah,
like build things profitably. So one of the things we did really early on, I think it was really helpful, is we just even to today, like we try to keep this company as lean and mean as possible.
yeah,
We do over 1 million in
yeah,
revenue per employee.
yeah,
I've just seen as a former investor, I was in kind of private equity venture capital before this. I've seen a lot of companies like they get really big really fast, and then something goes bad.
yeah,
Their revenues drop 30%, the market
yeah,
drops 20%, and then like a lot of companies, a lot of what they do is like a lot of their overhead is people. So like that's how you like I don't know. So it just we always try to be like really really cautious around adding expenses to the
yep,
organization, and
yep,
not being cheap, but just being, because actually I would say like we're actually not cheap at all. We're the opposite of that. Like to my third
right.
point, which is team members, but it's just like making sure like I use the analogy with my team all the time. Like if the we could take a very big hit and we would be fine because
Yeah,
we're very lean and mean. And
yeah,
I like the analogy I use in my head is like we're like on a ship. My dad got this in my head. We're on a
yeah,
ship like going from Europe to America, and
yeah,
like you might get shot like a cannonball might ripple through it. Like you can't like the black swan events.
yeah,
No idea when those are going to come, but if they do, are you in a position where you can like react to that and like keep going? Right? So
yeah,
I think business model often gets overlooked in profitability.
yeah,
Like when you're profitable and you can take hits and like invest in things, and if they don't work, you're fine. You're in like
yeah,
generally a position of power.
yeah.
Um, so I would say number two. Sorry, I'm getting a little long. And then the third
You're
one,
good.
which we haven't touched on yet, which I'm surprised, uh, as a company, just the team, right? Like we only
Yeah,
exist because we have an incredible, brilliant team that loves what they do. Maybe not every day, maybe not every little thing, but generally speaking, they enjoy what they do. We try to create an environment for them where when I hire, I look for three things. I look for, do they love the work? Do they enjoy what
yeah,
they're doing? So like our salespeople, do they like building relationships with people? Our growth
yes,
person like loves nerding out about data on Facebook and like how to like, optimize, right? So that's, do they love what they do? Are they a great cultural fit? So like, do they fit
yeah,
in with like what we're trying
yeah,
to do here? And do we have similar worldviews? And do they want to, like go hard during the weeks, but then hang it up on the weekends and like, like
yeah,
actually like have a great life outside of work. And then number three is intellectual horsepower. Like I just look for people
yeah,
that are passionate and like are
yeah,
smart and love what they do. You kind of mentioned like excellence earlier. I think
yeah,
that's a different way
yeah,
of saying that too.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean like this whole thing doesn't work if you don't have the customers, but you only have the customers if you have a world-class team. And I think, just building this for the first time, building a company for the first time, when I was in the private equity world, I just saw a lot of companies like just completely mistreat their employees and didn't even care about them, and just that doesn't really end well. So
yeah,
one of the things we've tried to do is just really lean into like the employee experience here at 1440. Make it like I literally what I tell our head of people all the time is I know that headhunters are coming after our
yeah,
people. It's just how it works. And
yeah,
I want them, and I hope this is the case, I want them when they get that message to laugh. Like
yes,
literally laugh, right?
yes, yes,
This is the offer. There's no benefits. Like I don't have like I'm not trying to work on anything bigger than myself. There's no
yeah,
culture. Like, and we have a lot to get better at, of course, like
yeah,
every company does, but that's like we're really trying hard to build like this place where it's just like a really people love being here and want to and can be good parents and work really hard, go at it from 9 to 5, and then never bug people on the weekends, and let them like, let them have a good place to work too, because it's the talent wars. Like at the end of the day, like if you don't have the best, like most talented people in your company, like it's probably not gonna end well either.
yeah. So so you and I know you've got to go. So I'm gonna close this up pretty quickly here. That conversation I was hoping to get to, but I think I tried. My eyes were bigger than my stomach
We should
because
do it again, Johnny.
that
Anytime.
yeah,
Let's do
dude,
another
like
one.
let's just have that conversation. The
Cool.
next
That'd be
time we
incredible.
talk,
Yeah.
I want to because you and I have like a similar heart, and what you're
Yeah.
doing has actually inspired me, and believe it or not, has inspired others that I've told about it. Like I've told
Nice.
about your employee package and the way that you take, and I call you rabid. I say you're rabid about taking care of your people. Like because I think you you understand extraordinarily well, more than is common, how important it is to take care of your people, and then you're creative enough to find ways to do it outside of the normal kind of kit or box that we tend to play in. So everyone, that's Tim Huelskamp. Man, amazing conversation. This was so fun for me. And I will set up time to do this again because I have to have that conversation.
Nice. I can't wait, man. Yeah, we'll do this every week with you, man, for eternity. This is awesome.
Oh, so good, man. All right, take care,
Cool.
everybody.
Thank you so much.